Emily didn't remember ordering anything, but there it was, a plain brown box sitting neatly on her doorstep. No postage, no return address, just her name, handwritten in faded ink across the top. She brought it inside, half expecting it to be a prank or a mix-up. Inside was only two things, a white candle and a small note. The note read, "Light it and he'll come." No signature, no explanation. She held the candle in her hand. It was smooth, slightly warm to the touch, and unscented. Weird. She tossed it on the side table near her couch and forgot about it. That night, as she came back from brushing her teeth, the candle was lit, a soft flame dancing silently, even though she hadn't gone near it. She frowned, picked it up. It wasn't hot, no wax drips. She blew it out, but something else caught her eye. The armchair in the corner. It had been turned. It was now facing the window. She lived alone. Emily threw the candle in the trash the next morning. By the time she got home from work, it was back on the table. Literature. She stared at it for nearly 10 minutes. The flame didn't flicker. Not once. She turned off the ceiling fan, closed all windows. No air movement, and yet the flame stood tall. Perfect. Still. That night, she downloaded a motion detection camera app, left her phone facing the living room. She didn't sleep much. When she reviewed the footage the next morning, her heart nearly stopped. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the candle flared, and then something moved. A tall, narrow figure stepped into frame. Its limbs looked too long. Its head grazed the ceiling. It didn't walk. It glided straight to the window. It sat in the armchair, faced away from the camera, and then vanished. Emily replayed the footage again. The candle never flickered, but the figure, it was there, waiting, watching, only when the candle was lit. The next night, Emily found another note. It hadn't been there that morning. Same handwriting, same faded ink. Ask him one question. Only one. It was placed beneath the candle, which was already lit again, even though she'd thrown it in the freezer just hours earlier. She stared at the flame. Small, steady, unblinking. Ask one question. Her mouth was dry, her voice barely audible. "Who are you?" The flame didn't move. The room was still. And then, a voice, but not from around her, from inside the room. A whisper, low and distant, as if coming from behind the walls. "You already know." Her spine turned to ice. Then the flame rose an inch taller. And in her head, a flash. A memory she didn't know she had. She was 6, in the hallway of her childhood home. Lights off. At the far end, a tall man, standing, watching. No face. A candle in his hand. She blinked. The memory was gone. But now she remembered something else. For years, she'd had a recurring nightmare she never understood, waking in a dark room, with a single flame glowing beside her, and a whisper behind her ear. "Light it again." "I'm not done yet." Emily woke up in a cold sweat. The candle was gone. Not on the table. Not in the trash. Not in the freezer. She searched the apartment in silence. Every drawer, every room, even the crawl space. Nothing. It was finally over. That's what she told herself. Until she looked in the mirror. On her upper arm. A mark. A perfect circle. Red. Raw. Like the base of a burning candle had been pressed into her skin while she slept. She gasped and backed away. But the air in the room suddenly felt thick, heavy, and in the reflection behind her, a shadow moved across the hallway. She turned. No one. Later that day, she dug through old forums and ghost stories, searching for anything that felt familiar. That's when she found it. A post from 12 years ago. A girl in another town. Has anyone heard of the Candleman? The story was nearly identical. A candle, a note, a whisper, a burn mark. She followed the thread all the way down. The last comment read, "She stopped posting after that." Cops found her apartment empty, but there was wax all over the floor and a chair facing the window. The poster's name, Emily 1989. Same name, same nightmare, same ending, unless she did something about it. But that night when she got home, the candle was back, on the table, literature burning lower now, only an inch of wax left, and next to it, a new note. One night left. Emily didn't sleep, didn't eat, didn't speak. She stared at the flame. It was nearly gone. A thin curl of wax spiraled down the side like a tear. The wick was blackened, trembling, like it knew what came next. She tried everything. She threw it in the sink. It stayed lit. She froze it. It burned colder. She smashed it with a hammer. It reformed on the table like it had never been touched. At 3 a.m., she boarded the windows, pushed furniture against the doors, unplugged every light, and sat in the middle of her living room, surrounded by silence. The candle sat in front of her, flickering now, slowly. The wax was nearly gone. 3:17 a.m. The flame shrunk, then flared one last time, and died. Darkness, complete. For a moment, nothing moved. Then footsteps, slow, measured, from the hallway. She couldn't breathe, couldn't scream, couldn't run. He was already inside. She felt him behind her, close, breathing. Then, a soft gust of air, like someone blowing out a candle. Her body went still, frozen in place, eyes wide, mouth open. And in the corner of the room, an armchair turned toward the window. The next day, the apartment was empty. No signs of struggle, no broken locks, just a faint scent of smoke and wax. The only thing left behind, a single white candle, unlit, waiting. Later that week, across town, a new doorstep, a small brown box. No return address, just a note. Light it and he'll come.